Hey everybody, welcome to today's stream. I hope everybody's doing good today. I'm doing pretty good myself. Lots of things going on in the shop. I'm in the middle of trying to work on that dust collection upgrade, which is kind of crazy. But other than that, I've been kind of playing with this Pokemon card encapsulation thing. And I thought it'd be kind of fun to do it on the live stream. So just so everybody knows, Pokemon is like a role-playing game, and somebody contacted me and asked. I usually don't do, like if somebody says, hey, can you cast this for me? I usually don't take on commissions like that, but it was a hilarious story. He said, I want a Pokemon card cast because my friend hates this specific one. And every time somebody gives him one of these cards, he like rips it up and like, you know, does different stuff because he hates this one card. And he's like, I want to be able to give him one for his birthday that he can't destroy. And so I just thought it was hilarious. And plus, I've been kind of wanting to try this out. You know, there's Pokemon cards, and I know Steve McDonald did a D&D, I think it was, card. You know, and there's like, I mean, you could do baseball cards. I don't, you know, that's a little controversial on some of these things that are like trading cards. Don't know if you want to do it, but there's photos. I mean, there's lots of things like this that you can cast. And so I thought, yeah, I'd like to try that. But, you know, my first question to this person was, and I don't think he's here. He might be here actually. Is that you? Is that Jacob? Campbell? I can't remember if Campbell's your last name. Anyway, Jake, so I was like, so just to make sure, this isn't like a really expensive card, is it? You know, because that I'm definitely not doing. So, you know, for things like that where it's not, you know, expensive or whatever, then, you know, whatever. And I was like, so send me a bunch of them because I've never really done this before. And I don't know if the resin, you know, some of the problems that you have, you know, the obvious ones, air bubbles, dust things getting into, this is one of the things with clear casting objects. You know, just the littlest dust particle can get in there and it totally ruins it. So that's one of the toughest things, I think, if you're working in like a wood shop that's kind of dusty. You got to really be careful, maybe pick times of day to do this before you've been, you know, cutting a bunch of stuff on the table saw or turning something. Try to do it maybe like first thing in the morning, get that thing cast and then cover it. But the other issue is, you know, resin can kind of soak into the material, the card, the paper, whatever it may be. That's definitely an issue with, you know, can be an issue with photographs, cardboard. And I mentioned this kind of a while ago. When I did the Star Wars sphere, the X-Wing sphere, it came with this little cardboard piece thing in the package for the X-Wing. And it had like the name of it, you know, like X-Wing, whatever the name was. And so I'm like, oh, I'm going to cast that. Well, the problem was it soaked up some resin. And so that was the only flaw in that entire piece. And I'm a little bit bummed that I didn't even try to seal it or do something about that. So what we're going to do is seal it off, and actually Alumilite came out with their amazing sealer, which is perfect for this. It's exactly what you want to be using. It also will aid with like mounting it onto the resin. You want to put it in the middle. So it's going to be kind of an interesting one, I think. It's kind of a two-step process, and so the way that I'm going to do this, it's going to be sort of cooking show style in a sense. There's actually kind of three parts that I really kind of need to do, but I'll just kind of give you the middle part. I'll kind of explain, and then we'll basically start from the beginning, get things set up, do the first pour, and then we're going to basically start off from after the first pour had set up and we mounted the card and do that second pour. Now, we won't be able to see these specific things actually finished today because you got to wait for the resin to cure. But I did do just a playing card, and so I can kind of show you that real quick. On the screen here. So that's what we're going for. You can see there's flashing. I wish there was a way to kind of fix the flashing that you get. It kind of wants to curl up on the sides of the mold a little bit, and there's a little bit of, you know, flashing underneath the bottom. But, you know, all I'm going to do is probably just take a knife and just kind of cut that stuff off. And I think, honestly, it's probably good. You know, I mean, it doesn't need to be specifically, you know, perfect, I don't think. But anyway, I was pretty happy with this. Now, I used Amazing Clear Cast for this one. And what I was noticing after the first pour, there was like micro air bubbles all over the place. I tried to stir it up, you know, like mix it kind of carefully, and I just kind of gave up. So We've moved to a different resin for this. I just, Amazing Clearcast Plus, it would be nice to have their, super UV inhibitors and all that. But but I don't like how thick it is. It's such a thick resin that I think it lends itself a little bit better to pouring, like if you were going to do an entire tabletop, that might be a good use of it, where you're pouring it really thin and encapsulating, maybe like pebbles, or you could even do cards in a tabletop, but something that's a larger pour and even thinner, that would be probably better with that one. I don't know. I don't really love thick resins because the air bubbles tend to just kind of stay in there and linger for a while. So what we're going to use instead is liquid diamonds, because that stuff is super thin and it's going to work great. It does have UV inhibitors in it, so it's not like it's going to yellow like immediately. But I don't, the problem with these UV inhibitor claims, you have no clue how long that's going to keep resin from yellowing. None of them that I know of will keep resin from yellowing indefinitely if you put it out in the sun. So as long as you're not sticking it in direct sunlight, liquid diamond should be fine for quite a while. So anyway, that's what we're up to today. It should be kind of fun. I'm excited. So let me stop real quick. Who was here first? There's a lot of people here, it seems like. Everybody's into the Pokemon cards. Dave Sloan was here first. How's it going, Dave? And Gene. Nice. And then Dominic. Awesome. Oh, wait. Dave already super chatted. Thanks, Dave. I appreciate it. That was early. I don't even think it showed up on my thing yet. That was way long ago. So I appreciate it. Thank you. Martian's here. Let's see. Kim's here. Jeff. Nice. Jim. And Doug's here, of course. And David's here. Sweet. Lots of people. And I saw Donald Vlogsify. How's it going? Very cool. Art's here. Art's in the house. And Tony Herrera, how's it going? Hoping soon. We might be, not soon, but hopefully this season, this baseball season, we might be getting down to LA for a Dodger game. So we might maybe be able to see you. I wish we could do the SoCal Pen Turners gathering. I can do it. Doug's here. How's it going, Doug? From Fleetswood. Yeah, I think we can do it pretty good. Like I said, these types of things, especially, I was saying that I don't usually take commissions, and especially for something like this, I don't do this kind of thing, really. I make turning blanks. If you needed pen blanks, that's something that's at least in my wheelhouse. This is something that, anyway. But I decided, I was like, you know what, I really want to try it. So let's do this commission. Please don't destroy an expensive card. Yeah, I know. I've seen a few people. I think it was David Picciuto did a baseball card. It was actually an April Fool's Day video, and he's like, "Yeah, I got this like really expensive card that I want to preserve and make sure it doesn't get." And he totally laid it on the whole time, and it was actually just a photo, like a printed one. It was pretty funny. So anyway, so it's snowing today here. Like literally 2 days ago, I told Gretchen, this is the last week that Heavenly, the ski resort here, is open. But the base lodge that I usually go to that's like right up the hill, that's not open anymore. So I'd have to go to California side, and then I'd have to pay for parking and all this. And I'm like, you know what? The snow's going to suck anyway. I'm kind of done. My knees are shot. I need to go to physical therapy. And I'm like, we're just going to hang out on our day off on Thursday this time. And then of course, like the day before Thursday, it decides to dump a foot in Tahoe. And I'm like, really? You just can't win. Yeah, UV, as long as you keep it out of direct sunlight, Alumilite Clear and Clear Slow has like no UV inhibitors in it, so it's a little bit more, it can yellow a little bit quicker. But frankly, I mean, I've been selling clear pen blanks made with Alumilite Clear for 8 years or something like that, 7 years right now at this point, and I haven't had not one person came back and said, hey, this thing yellowed. So I think, for pens and stuff, as long as you're not like leaving it outside, I think you're generally pretty good. But you can expect over time, epoxies and all these types of resins generally kind of turn yellow. So anyway, let's see here, using the actual card. You right issue? Well, that's okay. I'm not that worried. about copyright. It's a kind of a personal gift for somebody. So it's not like I'm going to go into business selling Pokemon cards that are casted, but you might want to watch out. I think that's a very gray area. So, you know, if these companies really wanted to sue you, I don't even know if they'd win, really. Like, it'd probably be more like a cease and desist letter might come, but they're probably not going to actually take you to court because it's not going to really do much. So I'm not that worried about it personally, but if you're worried about it, contact your lawyer and discuss it with them. So anyway, let's get going here. So like I said, I did one test and it worked pretty good. You know, I got it pretty well in the middle. Everything worked well. One of the problems that I had was, you know, what do I do for a mold? How do I do a mold? And I think if you were really going to make a lot of these types of things, I would probably just make a silicone mold, you know, just a little square thing, like make a perfect one, polish it perfect, and then just make a silicone mold. And I think that's probably going to be the easiest way to go. But for, you know, if you're just doing one-off things like I'm doing, you know, I may do a couple more of these, but a handful maybe. I'm not going to go into business making, you know, encased cards or anything like that. So for that, you know, many of you guys, if you watch my channel, you might be familiar with Jedrick 29T. I don't know what that name is, but he does amazing, you know, specifically this type of work. And he uses plexiglass for molds a lot of times. So I thought, okay, I'm gonna go for that one. And originally I was kind of building the mold like I usually build my HDPE molds, where you basically have this square that's, you know, the full size of the casting, and then you put your sides on the side of that. And then I realized that there's no way to like really seal it properly, correctly. So what we're going to do, and this is actually I think a lot easier, what I did was all we're going to do is we're going to build the sides of it. And I actually got a good tip from Jedrick. Usually he puts, he like CA glues all this stuff together. And I tried doing that and it sucked. Like it didn't work. I didn't like it at all. So I also saw another video where he just used tape. And that's what I've done. I've done a couple of these pours just using tape, and that works way better. So you basically tape these pieces together, and I'll show you the way that I've come up to do it. It's not like it's special or anything. Like I said, I'm not an expert at this. I've done it a couple times, but I'll show you what I came up with, and it seems to work fine. You tape it and you get basically a box, and then all you got to do is just slap this on another piece of plexiglass and then hot glue around the base. So it works pretty good. I'm pretty happy with this method. So let's get the cameras in here a little bit. So the first step is we need to pour. Well, first step, I'm going to build the little mold walls. I'll build another one and kind of show you quickly how I assembled this thing. And then we're going to hot glue that down, and then we're going to pour one layer. So basically half the resin is going to go in first, just clear. We're not doing anything with the card. It's just pouring resin in. And then what you want to do is you want to let that set up, basically, like fully. And then we're going to come back and mount the card onto that. So it's basically going to be in the middle. As long as you mix up, you know, what I mixed up was 50 grams. Let's see, what did I mix up? 50, maybe 70. What did I mix? 75 grams. Hold on real quick. Let me look at my cups. 2 to 1. 25, 1 to 1. I mixed up 50 the first. Okay, so yeah. Sorry, I had to think about this. Yeah, 16 and 32. So I was using two different resins. So the Amazing Clear Cast, I did it's by volume, and I did a total of 50 milliliters. So 25 for the first, no, each, sorry, I have to go back and think. So it was 50 milliliters total on the first pour, and then 50 milliliters for the second. So basically what I'm saying is they were equal pours. So as long as you pour 50 milliliters in the first one, put the card on, then 50 milliliters, then you've mounted it basically in the middle, in the center of that block. Now, when I switched to liquid diamonds, I went for weight. I just find it's a lot easier. I don't have to mess with like these tiny, you know, trying to find a tiny cup with measurements. Much easier to just mix in a cup, and I don't have to worry about graduations on it. So for that, the problem is it's a 2 to 1 mixture. So what I did was I went for 32 grams and 16 grams, and that's pretty close. I think it was about 48 is what it ends up being. Yep, 48 grams total, so it's about the same. So anyway, let's see here. Let's switch to this view. So let me get the resin and all this stuff out of the way, and I'll show you what I did for putting the sides together. Now I don't really know. Another little thing that I'm going to say is I tried like slicing these with like a knife and then like breaking them like I've seen people do, and I either suck at that or this is not the same material as what I've seen other people use. I gave up on all of that stuff, and I just went to the table saw and basically put something over it, a piece of wood over the piece, so that you were kind of giving it like a zero clearance. And I got really good cuts off the table saw with that. It just, I don't know. I'm not good at doing that. If you're good at, you know, slicing plexiglass with a knife and then popping it, then just do it that way. But this definitely gives you a nice square edge. So I don't know. If you're set up with a table saw and all that stuff, go for it. If not, then try the other way, the knife. Okay, so what I did was I just took a little piece of tape. I guess technically first thing I need to do, off me. I'm just gonna hang that off my thing because I can't do anything with it. First I gotta get the stuff off of here. So plexiglass comes coated with, you know, they cover the edges so that you're not like messing up the face of it basically. So I'm gonna actually just take all of these things off. Bright enough? I'm gonna increase the, you guys let me know. I'm gonna increase the exposure just one click. On my monitor it was looking a little bit kind of dark. Let me know if that blows it out or anything. I think the thing is the blue mats that are under this cutting mat, those things tend to like shine more into the camera, like reflect. Sometimes this stuff gets kind of tough to, there we go, you get to find the edge of. And the way that I think this works, I think there's like a kind of a really smooth face and then more of a, I don't know, less smooth face. So just be aware. I don't know what I'm doing with this plexiglass stuff. Frankly, I'm not even sure if this is technically plexiglass or if it's like a polycarbonate. I don't even know if there's really a difference. So I just went to Home Depot and picked up something that looked like plexiglass to me. The thinnest one. This is the, well, I actually can't remember how thick it was. It was basically the thinnest plexiglass stuff that they had at Home Depot. Okay, so we got 4 pieces here. And what I did was, the way this is going to be laid out is the long piece is actually going to made up like inside the, you know, it's not going to be outside of the small piece. It's going to be inside it. So I started with this piece, the shorter ends, stuck the tape down, and then just kind of did that. And you want to make sure that you get this nice and, you know, mounted on there. And then because the edge is going to wrap around, I kind of squared this off on this piece, made sure that that's nice and tight, right? Now, to line everything up though, this is where things get tricky, and this is what I came up with. I want to make sure that you can see what I'm doing. This is a piece of HDPE. And what I do is I just come in and kind of get this thing to the end and then line it along the edge of that. And then I'll take my next piece, one of these outside guys, make sure that I got the right side coming in. And that way I can line it up. I can reference it off this edge and get everything nice and even, basically. And I don't know if it's, you know, absolutely perfect or not, but the 2 that I've poured seemed fine. So this seems to work relatively well. All right, so now I got 2 pieces together. Then I'm going to come back again. I'm always going to start with this small piece. It just seems to work better that way because that way I can kind of fold it over and square that end. Hopefully that kind of made sense. The way what I was saying is, again, this piece is not going to go on the outside of this. It's going to come on the inside. So I want to wrap that tape around and make sure it's kind of stuck to the edge, the very edge of this small piece. So I always apply the tape first to the small one and then do this where I'm kind of squaring it over and apply. And you're going to have to kind of redo that, but at least it's starting out kind of that way. Then I'm going to flip it around. It's just easier for me to do it this direction. My little alignment block. come in here. So hopefully this will kind of help you guys out with the mold making. Sometimes that can be like the most pain in the butt thing of doing resin casting. Just trying to figure out how to get the mold to be set up right, you know, especially with these things. That really didn't seem to work very well. I'm going to redo this one. One thing is you don't want to rush this stuff. And I don't even want to reuse that piece after taking it off. You want to make sure that your tape holds, you know. Otherwise you could have leaks in your mold. So I'm just going to restart this. I'm going to redo it just to make sure. These kind of crafty projects that require, they tend to require a good amount of focus, kind of, and patience, I would say, when you're assembling everything like this. All right, so I'm going to really focus on this, make sure that I got this thing all the way down, slide it down to the end there. And you could even come back and try and, you know, with something else, try and get something that'll flatten it on the back so you know that you're on the edge. But like I said, so far, everything seemed to work fine this way, the way I'm doing it. So that's what I'll show you. So anyway, you know, you guys get the idea on this mold thing, I think. Oops. I find it's best to lay the piece down. And get that block in there. It gets a little bit kind of crazy. You got this long thing, but it works out okay. Okay. And then one more to go. Okay. Now when I come back to bring this thing around, I want to kind of make sure that I've gotten these other two pieces are kind of set up the right way where they're on the inside, like I said, set up properly, so that when I glue this together, or not glue it, but when I get this last tape piece in, it's set up properly. Okay. There we go. We got ourselves a box. Now the problem is we have all these little tape things, and so you want to cut those off. Bare minimum, you're going to have to cut the bottoms off. You could technically leave the tops on. I think it's better to just get rid of all that stuff. So I got an X-Acto knife. And you want to be careful because you don't want to miss and then start scratching the edge of this. It's going to mess up the outside of your casting. That's why I'm on this mat. So I just come in and just get it lined up with the edge best I can. Kind of delicate work, but there we go. And you just cut off each one of these pieces. I'm not going to go through and do all this. I don't need this one because I already made one. But I'll just do another little kind of example here. Like I said, you want to be careful. Take your time. Because the hope is that when this thing is finished, when we cast the second piece, the idea is we really don't want to be doing a bunch of work to this thing. You want things to be as pristine as possible on the outsides. I'm going to have to cut off some of this flashing with a knife on the edges, but you really don't want to be having to sand and mess around with all this stuff. So as smooth as you can get your mold, that's how you want things to be. You want everything to be kind of perfect when it comes out. It'll just save you time, Nobody likes having to wet sand for hours. All right, so I'll just do this half of it. You guys get the idea, I think. All right. So now that can be mounted. I would, again, recommend doing the other side as well. It takes 2 seconds. That way you're not messing around with, if you're pouring and, I don't know. You just don't want those things in the way, really. So I'm going to put that aside. So we got our mold, right? Next step is, I got another piece of plexiglass here. So I'm actually going to, and I kind of cut this to be just about perfect, This will allow you to put it in a pressure pot, but I'm not actually even going to do that. I don't think you really need to. Liquid diamonds, like I said, is so thin, and as long as you're stirring it carefully, you really shouldn't have a bunch of air bubbles. They should easily float out, and you shouldn't have any in your final casting. Okay, so there you have it. We got our perfect piece of plexi alliteration. All right, so all we got to do is stick it on there. Now, another nice use, if you have a nice square piece of something that's non-marring, you can use that to kind of line things up and make sure that everything's pretty square. Forgot to heat up my glue gun, so I got to plug that in. And while we're waiting for that to heat up, I'm going to kind of take a peek at the... Switch to this view, I guess. I'm going to take a peek and just see if anybody has anything that they were... Blocked again? Huh. Actually, Fleetswood, I would maybe imagine that if you have the caps lock on, I would turn off the caps lock. That's probably what's doing it. You don't want to have that on. Some things, I don't know what my settings are offhand, but that might be one of the things that automatically blocks you. No, Trubbish, so if you didn't hear the story, the reason for the Trubbish, this specific character, Jacob, he contacted me and he's like, the story is he has a friend who hates this card. Like every time somebody gives it to him, he just rips it up or burns it or, demolishes it, destroys it. And so his whole thing was, he's like, for his birthday, what I want to do is I want an epoxy encased one so that he can't destroy it. So he actually hates this card. And I mean, frankly, I have never even heard of this. I'm not a huge Pokemon person, but I had never even heard of this one. But it is kind of silly. I don't know. But it does have the sludge toss. That's its secret power. So, hey, sludge toss. So I have a few of these cards. I asked him to send a bunch because I was like, look, I've never done this before and I don't know what to expect. Originally, what I was going to do was actually try just casting it because I actually think you may be able to get away with just casting it without sealing the card at all. And I was going to actually try that, and then I was going to do, a sealer thing, and if I still ran into issues or something, or if like a dust nib got in it, then I wanted extras so I could do a few and make sure that I got at least one that was good, at the end. But what I ended up figuring out with the sealer thing, it's not going to hurt anything to put sealant on it of some sort, and you can use the, Alumilite's amazing sealer. Works really well. Mod Podge, there's all kinds of different things like this that'll work fine. But the thing is, you actually kind of need to glue it down. So once we've poured the first layer and it's hardened up, you kind of need to glue the thing down. I'm not even going to say kind of. You have to glue it down to that surface, and you want to press it out. So realistically, I'm going to have to glue it with something anyway. Why not just, once it's glued down, cover the other side, and then you don't even have to worry about having any issues where the card itself, the material, has soaked up resin. May as well just seal it anyway. So I didn't even mess around with not doing it. But I have seen videos of other people doing it where they just kind of dumped resin on cards like this, and I think it'll work, but there's always this slight chance that at least some part of the card or the material may want to kind of soak it up or I don't know, it can just kind of mess it up. So, you know, in most cases like this, better off to seal it even if it may not need it. And then for things like photos or things like cardboard or paper, anything like that, it's going to soak up the resin. It's going to discolor everything. Steve McDonald actually did a video on this, and I checked his video out. He did a bunch of different things, not sealing things, and it was like, I think he did, I think he was doing like watercolors or something. I forget exactly what it was, but it was like basically just paper. And so he did one without covering it with anything. He did one with like a sealant, like a Mod Podge type deal, like this stuff. And then he did one with a spray, like, I don't know, whatever, spray cover sealer or something. And so, you know, some parts of that soaked up, you know, the resin, and it discolors things. So if you don't want to see that, and in the case of that little cardboard piece thing, in the Star Wars X-Wing thing, I don't know if you can see, but I mean, this isn't super thick, but I mean, it's a lot thicker than a trading card. And what ended up happening was it kind of bubbled out. Like, it literally soaked up the epoxy and kind of bubbled a little bit. So, you know, you're better off sealing these types of things. Anything that you're going to stick in here that has any dyes in it, and if it's made of paper and is absorbent, you're much better off sealing the thing and not worrying about it. You know, not having to worry about it. All right, so I need a new little glue stick in my glue gun. I think we're ready here. Richard, and Hugh. Thanks, Hugh. I appreciate the super chats, guys. You guys are rocking it. And I don't know why, but my little interface thing doesn't show Dave Sloan's. That's really weird. But I saw it up in the chat, luckily, so I'm glad that I scrolled up. Hey, there's Steve. Steve did something like this. He's actually done a few things. He's the one that did you do, is it a Dungeons and Dragons card? That thing was so cool, and it looked like ice melting and all kinds of stuff. Check out that video. Put a link, if Doug or I don't know if Jen's here, but if somebody can grab a link to that video. I don't think that you can post your own links. I think that the settings are kind of set up. I kind of put it on my settings for you know, and part of the reason why some people may be getting locked out is I think I have things set pretty locked down, because there's only like me and maybe one other person usually that's in the chat, and I just don't want people to be able to do anything. So a lot of you guys can't do anything, so I apologize for that. But anyway, oh, it was a magic card. That's right, magic. I forgot. That's the one. Okay, so let's switch over to the overhead view. By the way, Steve, I checked out your video. I don't know if you heard me when I was just talking about it, but the one where you were doing, was it watercolors? I don't know. I don't know if you printed it or if you actually painted it. I watched that video and just kind of saw what you did in that one. So I was kind of doing a little bit of research on YouTube before I did this, and your videos definitely helped. Which one? This one. Yeah, let's do that one. Okay. So again, you guys can see what I'm doing here. I have this little block here, and I'm just I have that in there just to make sure that I got everything square. Again, we want to try and get this as perfect as possible so that when we demold it, it's done. Like, we're not messing with this thing. I don't want to mess with it. I'm just going to kind of hold it in place and glue. Don't be stingy with the glue. It's not a case where you want to save money, because if you don't glue it well enough and it leaks, the price for that is going to be way more expensive than the price for a piece of glue, because you're going to lose resin and possibly, you know, whatever you were casting in this thing and all kinds of problems. So be liberal. Don't be afraid of the glue gun. Okay, so we got two, and I actually moved this thing around in here. I'm gonna, you know, try and, I know that we got that corner squared. It's kind of hard to move this thing. Got that corner squared up, but let's move it over here too. Might not even be a bad idea to go down to the bottom and square that one, but I'm just gonna kind of move it around. And the other thing that this does is it also helps, you know, not have the thing bow while you're kind of pushing with the glue gun. Gives you kind of a flat you know, flat edge. They'll flatten your piece of your side piece out a little bit. Some of this stuff is maybe a little overkill, you know, I mean, whatever. Depends on the level of how good you want this to actually come out, if it matters that much. One thing to keep in mind, depending on the thickness of your plexiglass, you may not want to be keeping that heat, the tip of your gun, like, you know, it may melt it basically. If you leave it on there, it's too thin or, you know, whatever. So just be aware of that. But so now we got this thing glued. If you kind of see any spots that you're like, yeah, that's a little thin, I don't know, come back, add a little bit more glue. Again, now is the time to fix problems, not while it's leaking resin out the bottom. You know, I'm going to spin this around, just, you know, look at this. So I'm a little bit it's a little bit weak right there. I'm going to come in here and add a little bit more. Trying to keep the little tendrils, little stringiness out of the inside of the mold. All right, so there we go. Done with the glue gun. Now, I want to wait for this glue to fully like harden up. So while we're doing that, what I'm going to do is we're going to switch back to the intro camera. Let's see if there's anything, there's no incriminating things in my shop hanging around. No, I want to show you, if I can without pulling cords out, I'm going to show you the shop. It's in disarray right now. I know it's kind of crooked, but that's what we get. So I ordered, and I'll be doing, I'm not going to do like a real in-depth video on this. Wow, that camera's really crooked. Hold on. I think I can fix that. There we go. That ought to be better. I'm not going to do an in-depth video on how to install this stuff. There's tons of other videos out there, I'm sure, that are better. And I really don't have time to be shooting a video. I barely have time to get this in. But what I'm doing is I bought the Oneida 5 horsepower Gorilla, Dust Gorilla, like their biggest, baddest cyclone. And then I went with the Nordfab quick clamp pipe, metal. And so what I've decided is, when I moved into the shop, I really wanted to hang the ductwork originally, but it was so expensive to buy ductwork like that and do all that kind of stuff that I didn't do it ever. Now I've just decided 8 years later, I want to do it. So I'm kind of in the process. The problem is I don't actually have the hanging equipment. I don't have the dust collector, but it's coming. All that stuff should be here next Wednesday. And so in the meantime, I kind of assembled some parts of it and just made sure that everything was kind of set up right. And I'm just making sure that it's going to work the way that, you know, I'm on the phone with Oneida and I'm trying to explain, you know, distances and stuff, but they really have, and I drew them like this, like picture with crayon, pretty much. It was terrible. So the problem is, you know, between my measurement errors possibly, and then just relaying all this stuff over the phone, and they don't really know exactly what's all going on. I just wanted to make sure that this was going to work the way that we kind of planned it, which it's pretty close. There was one mess up that we both kind of, between me and Oneida, kind of had, but so far everything's going pretty good, and I think it's going to be a pretty nice system. I'm hoping that this was by far the most expensive thing I've ever spent on my business, so it better work very well. But I'm pretty excited. I think it's going to make things a lot nicer. It'll be a little bit safer in here. I don't know. You know, one of the problems with the hanging, the ductwork, I mean, I have pipes running on the ground and stuff in here, and it's kind of a pain when you have to step over that stuff. I'm worried my dad's going to trip on it. So anyway, upgrades, expensive ones, but I think it's going to be kind of nice. Make sure there's no naked people. I know, get out of here, naked people. I'm going to turn the camera over there. So thanks, Steve. Yeah, I'm lucky. My dad had this because, you know, my shop area is pretty nice. I basically doubled because I had a 2-car garage at first when I was in Vegas. That's what I started just woodworking in. And then, so this is about twice that size, which is really nice. And then realistically though, I mean, I've kind of also spread out. I'm in a 4,000 square foot shop. It's huge. That's my dad's. And so he let me kind of carve out this corner here, but I also have like storage and I can, I can take over other parts. So it's pretty nice being in here. Yeah, you could probably use glass, I suppose. I don't see why not. I mean, I don't think it really matters what the bottom is. You could probably use HDPE. I think for me, I don't have any glass, and I had the plexiglass stuff. So, you know, you can rip that stuff off and you know you got a pristine surface. The idea is you want to make sure that you have a nice, you know, flat, no scratches or imperfections, or at least minimal imperfections on there. But I don't think it really matters what material you use as long as it is, you know, what I just said. Sorry, I'm just investigating this mold. Actually, yeah. Okay, so I think we're ready to go here. I would probably typically wait a little bit longer, but I think it's going to be fine. All right, so next step, I had to kind of stop and think for a second there. So we've been kind of messing around, and like I was saying, my shop is not perfectly clean. I can actually see little dust particles in here and stuff, which is not what you want. See that thing right in the middle? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over and just blow this out a little bit. You know, you could, I'm sure there's other things you can do. I usually just kind of grab my air hose and I'm going to put it on low. I don't want to tear apart my mold here. But I'm just going to kind of blow in there. Try and get as much of the stuff out as possible. It's almost impossible to get every single piece of dust out of your mold. I think this type of stuff actually is probably better to be done indoors. You know, it's kind of difficult if you're in kind of a dirty, messy, dusty shop. So I just want to say that, and don't feel bad if you get dust particles here and there. There's kind of this, you know, you got to kind of figure out what your level of acceptance will be on certain things. You know, sometimes you really do need it to be kind of flawless, but a lot of times it doesn't really need to be. So if you just don't really look that hard, you won't see the little tiny imperfections. They're just so hard to get out. I mean, it's almost impossible to keep something dead clear. I'm looking at this thing and I don't know. I mean, you know, as long as you kind of hold it away. I mean, if you got like, you know, a magnifying glass out, I'm sure you could find some imperfections here and there. But as long as you're not like putting it under a microscope, you should be fine. But every once in a while you get this gigantic thing in there and it just ruins it. So just be aware of that. All right, so what we are going to do now is we're going to just pour our first layer. And all it is just clear resin. So I'm going to switch to the work and casting view. Let me just see what does this look like. You know, I'm just going to go with this for now. I know it's kind of blurry being like big like that, but I'm really not doing anything right here right now. So I'm over on my my scale. Let me bring this over. It's going to be a lot easier for me to not be way over there. Okay. I'm zeroing my scale out. Let's see, what can we put away? I don't need this knife. I don't think I need this block thing anymore. This I can put over here. Our cards, I don't need any of this stuff. Don't need tape. Just try and clear as much of this stuff out of my way that I don't need. If you want, you know, so I just blew this thing out, and with me moving around and doing stuff, you know, dust is always in the air. So if you really wanted to, you could cover this thing with like a bucket or something like that. I think we're okay. I'll try and we're gonna pour it pretty soon, but that is what I am going to do. Once I've poured this thing, I am going to cover it because it's going to be open. You know, that resin's going to be wet for hours, basically. And if you just leave it uncovered, you're going to get a lot of dust in there, guaranteed. All right, so we got our liquid diamonds. You can get this stuff at Turner's Warehouse. 2-to-1 by weight. It's a very thin viscosity. It's a pretty good resin. I like it as an epoxy. It's not a bad way to go. See here. So what I'm doing is 16 grams of part B, which is the one, you know, the hardener, and then 32 grams of the part A resin. I don't think it even says part A or B. Yeah, it does actually. Resin A. So 32 grams of that by weight. Ooh, that was pretty close. $32. Look at that. Nailed it. Okay, so we got our 32 grams, and then we need 16 grams of part B. That away. Now. And then with the part B, it's super thin, and trying to sneak up on 16 grams, pouring it out of a half-ounce bottle, or a half-gallon jug, not really in the cards, right? I mean, it's going to be pretty tough to nail that without going over or spilling it or doing something else. So it's much easier to pour out of something smaller. I have these little condiment cups. So we need 16 grams. So it's much easier to pour this. You got much more control. And you don't want to, we're trying not to create bubbles. It's kind of running down the side of that. Around. So, whatever you can do to kind of minimize how many bubbles that you're creating when you're pouring and mixing, you want to do at this point. Okay, so we're at 15. I'm going to dump most of this back, and we're just going to sneak up on it. 15.5 actually. I'm going to pour even more out. That way I can't go too far over even if I did. And it can kind of just drip at this point. I don't know how accurate you need to be, but this really isn't that much resin. So when you're dealing with less resin, more accuracy is better. If you're mixing up 10 gallons of resin, if you're off a few grams, who cares? It's not really going to make any difference in the scheme of things with the ratio. But if you're only mixing up 50, then if you're off a gram, that's a fairly significant amount. And it could mess up your ratio a little bit. Come on, I'm almost there. Nothing's coming out. Got a little overzealous there with my dumping it out. Okay, that ought to be good. I think. That's good. Okay. 16. On the dot. Okay, now I'm going to switch to the overhead view a bit. Actually, probably both views. You can kind of see what I'm doing down there in the bottom. I'm going to use this plastic spoon here. Or not spoon, but whatever. And I am not interested in whipping this with fury. You guys know that I usually do that. I'm not timid about how fast I mix usually, but that's because I'm usually putting things in a pressure pot. And you could pressurize this. That's part of the reason why I made this, this size, the mold. It's much better than, if I was trying to put a gigantic piece of plastic or glass, obviously wouldn't fit. But here's the deal, guys. The thing about pressure is one issue that you have is pressure pots will collapse all the air bubbles within the structure of the resin, where it has become solid. And I really need to get to the bottom of this and talk to a physics person or somebody that can really explain this and verify what I think. But from what I understand, the way that this works with the pressure is it does, you know, when you put something under pressure, it collapses it shrinks the air bubbles. They get smaller, right? And then once it turns from a liquid to solid, then those air bubbles are effectively just gone. They're in solution. They're never coming back once that happens. They're microscopic and they're locked in, basically, but they're just gone. Unless it reverted to a liquid again or something like that. I don't know. But the problem is you still get air bubbles on the surface that kind of pop because it's half gas and half solid. On that top surface, if you got a bubble that's kind of embedded in the surface, and a lot of you guys might notice this, you know, you get these little air bubbles that pop when you take it out. Now there's no air bubbles in the casting itself, like inside it, but on that surface you can get some. And so this is the issue with doing this type of thing. You can't just say, oh, I'm going to mix it up with Fury and then throw it in a pressure pot and hope everything works, because we need to have this top layer like perfect. It needs to be dead perfect and flat and no bubbles or any flaws. So even with a pressure pot, you still, you know, and we could put it in the pressure pot and also guarantee that there's no little microscopic air bubbles, but I think it's kind of overkill, you know? So I'm just gonna mix very slow. We got, all the cards are stacked in our favor. We poured, you know, carefully. I'm gonna mix very carefully, and we're using a resin that is very thin and it allows the release of bubbles very well. So, you know, and I don't think we're going to have any issues with it at all. But I just wanted to kind of mention that it is something to kind of think about. And you know, I kind of prefer the other way. You know, if I'm doing pen blanks or something, I'd rather just mix it up quick and then throw it in the pressure pot and not worry, because it's going to take care of all the bubbles. But I'm cutting the top off and turning it and shaping it, sanding it, doing all these things. I don't really care if the surface is perfect. I'm going to, you know, start cutting into it and sanding it myself anyway. But in this case, we want everything to be as perfect as possible out of the gate, you know, like right out of the bat, right off the bat, out of the gate. So just wanted to mention that. Something to think about. And there are cases even for like turning blanks and things where the first, you know, if you're doing a multi-level pour, you really don't want a lot of air bubbles on the surface sometimes. So just some thoughts to think about. All of this stuff, you know, whether you're into turning blanks or you're into, you know, casting Pokemon cards, there are things from each discipline of resin casting that you can utilize with your knowledge. So that's why I'm kind of covering all this stuff. It's not always just apples and oranges, you know. A lot of things that people do in what was I going to say? The prop making scene. You know, I've learned a lot of stuff from people like Punish Props and Volpin and, you know, like folks like that are doing these really amazing things, but they generally are using resins in a kind of a specific way for specific things. And then, you know, there's people like Oksana Bell that I've learned things from. She does a lot of like the pyramids and, you know, things like that, where, you know, bangles and pendants, where you're kind of casting something in a silicone mold and then taking it out, and it kind of needs to be fairly perfect, you know. Learned a few things from them. Different than turning blanks, but you can learn things. I'm going to stir this up real well. I want to scrape off my stick here. Sure that we're getting everything mixed up quite well. But I'm going slow. And I'm going to stop and show you how many bubbles are in this. I actually probably should have mixed up some amazing clear cast, because that stuff, no matter how slow you mix it, you're going to have a ton of air bubbles in it. Just, it's so thick. Not much you can do. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. All right, so there's really not that many. And I know it's kind of probably hard to see with the glare and stuff, but there really aren't that many air bubbles in there. They tend to float to the surface quick and pop quick. Let me zoom back out. I'm not done stirring yet. I would recommend, especially if you're stirring slow, mix, you know, 3 to 5 minutes, just to make sure. You don't want to understir. You got 40 minutes, guys, probably more, to get this stuff ready. You can, you know, give up 3 to 5 minutes. I don't know how long I've been stirring, so probably should have checked the clock, but. Donald's out of here. Have a good one, man. Yeah, tell me what you think after we get the replay going. Unfortunately, like I said, we won't have an actual results piece today. That's the problem with trying to resin cast, do live stream resin casting. You're like, all right, we mixed it up and threw it in the pressure pot. Come back in 2 days. All right, I'm going to stir for 1 more minute, and I'm going to probably call that good. It's probably fine at this point, but like I said, we have time. Don't cheat it. Off the gate and out of the back. Exactly, that's what I'm telling you. Can't even talk at this point. Off the gate. Off my rocker. And you could even stir slower. I mean, frankly, you could, really, really go slow. I'm kind of used to quickly stirring things. That's just my go-to. So it's tough for me to slow it down, but even I can do it. If I can do it, you can do it. I figure. All right, I'm going to call that good. So now here's another thing that you really need to be aware of, okay? So this table seems to be fairly level. It looks level, but is it? Probably not. So let me go get, I have a little torpedo level. Couple things here. What I would recommend doing is just check the surface. What the heck? Check the surface that your mold is sitting on first, and just see what it's generally which way is that going. So the bubble's a little bit off, right? So I need to kind of raise up this. Can you guys see? Yeah, I got to raise this end up a little bit in that direction, and then this way, the bubbles that way. This way. I need to raise this side up just a hair, right? So, and I'm going to double check, just make sure that you don't have dust and stuff on your level. I'm going to put this on the mold and just make sure that it's kind of doing the same thing. You got to make sure that your sides are even if you're going to do it like check this way, but so it's doing the same thing. So I can use the top of the mold to kind of reference this. So what I'm going to do here, check it. This is what you use business cards for. And you could do the whole table or whatever, however you need to do it. Go for it. But I think it's just as easy to just kind of stick it under here. I might actually need 2 cards. Oop. Got another one, Russell Nolte. Go underneath. There we go. Back it off just a little bit. And like I said, I know that I'm getting a little bit anal about this, but if the resin's kind of sloshed in there, it's not going to come out flat, So it's better to just take the time up front. Oh, look at that. That almost fixed it. Now it needs to actually come up a little bit that way. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to take this off of there. I'm just going to kind of scoot this down and see if that kind of gets it where we want it. That's pretty close, guys. I think that's good. That's not good. There we go. That isn't. What's happening with my levels messed up? Huh. Always good to double check things because this seems way off. No. Sometimes this can be infuriating, leveling things. Okay. Actually, it needs to come up. Actually, it's pretty close. I don't know. I moved it, and maybe this mat's kind of funky, but that's pretty close that way. This way, I think we can maybe lift it just a hair. We might be good to go. Oh, there we go. Perfect. Double check this way. Pretty good. Okay. So we're all leveled up. I'm telling you, sometimes leveling is infuriating. So at this point, the first pour is the simplest pour. Now I'm actually going to wait a second here. Take my stick out. You don't need the stick anymore. And I'm going to try and pop some of these bigger bubbles that are on the surface right out of the, what was it? Right off the gate. Right off the gate. I almost said it the right way this time. Right off the gate. We're going to pop some bubbles in there. So grab your torch. That way we're not even starting with bubbles. There was only a few big ones on the top there, but at this point it is totally clear. I can't see any bubbles. There's some small ones, but I'm really not that worried about those. So all we got to do is pour it. Okay, that's it. Doesn't get much easier than that, guys. And then you can take your torch again. Be careful because the plexiglass doesn't like heat, so be very on and off. You know, don't hold your thing. You don't want to do that with resin anyway, but be very quick. Get those bubbles. I mean, it is like pretty glass clear already. And we got hours of this thing, so if there are any extra bubbles, they're going to float to the surface. So at this point, what you want to do is cover this thing, okay? We don't want dust getting into that thing, all right? So I put a bucket on there. Let's switch to the work area view. See this bucket? That is going to eliminate dust particles from floating down into our pristine, absolutely perfect resin, all right? So we got that ready. One thing I didn't think about was, now this thing's right in my way, but since we did that, so just, you're going to have to deal with that bucket being underneath here while I'm showing you some of this stuff. I might have to redo the camera setup. But so now, this was one that I already did. So we've obviously already done the first layer pour. And then what I did was I already mounted the card. And what I used was this amazing sealer. So I just grabbed a paintbrush, some amazing sealer, and I just covered the bottom part of the card with sealer. And then just stuck it down and basically tried to push it out and adhere it to the resin in there. And so it looks like we got, I don't know, it wasn't the greatest. This is probably not going to be the best. I don't know if you can see that, but I'm going to have to do a little bit better job because there's some streaking. We're going streaking. There's some shiny spots in there. So I'm going to have to do a little bit better next time. I'm wondering if maybe... the sealer, it's really dry here. And so I might need to get the sealer on a little bit faster next time. And then get that thing laid down. So I'm not entirely certain what might have caused that, but we shouldn't have to worry about it on the top side. So that's kind of why I chose to go with this side. I don't think that this side really makes that much difference, matters as much as this side. That's the money side, right? So let's move the camera just a little bit here. I'm going to move, you can kind of see, but I'm going to move the camera and just get that lined up. I don't want to touch this bucket at this point because that thing's perfect. Let's just move the camera down a little bit. You can kind of see what's going on here. All right, so I'm opening up our amazing sealer. It looks like white glue, Mod Podge, any of those types of things. And all it's doing is it's sealing off whatever from our resin. All right, so I haven't applied any sealer to the top of this card, but I think it's a good idea to seal the top of the card just to make sure. So I got myself a little bit of a paintbrush here, and I'm just gonna apply this stuff. You want a thin coat. You don't want a lot of this stuff on here. One little tip that I got from, I can't remember, somebody who has a resin casting channel. They said to like also make sure that you get sealer on the edges of your card. Because that's, you know, the resin will soak into the edge too. So you want to have a little bit of a buffer around the edge of your card. I thought that was brilliant advice. So I'm just pulling the sealer onto the card here. Creating basically just a little bit of a dam. Now, a lot of people, and the person that told me about this tip, really recommended that you put 2 coats on things, but I think we can get away with 1. I think that'll be fine. I'm going to try and make this as smooth as possible, get everything covered, and I'm not going to wait too long here. But you do have to wait for it to cure, basically, to the glue stuff to cure. We'll have to see how this goes. Hopefully we'll get a good casting on this one. Like I said, a little bit of that shiny stuff on the bottom side there, which I'm a little bit kind of, I don't know what to think about that. I didn't get any of that with the amazing clear cast. Pretty much did everything the same exact way. Another thing you can do is switch directions a little bit and just make sure you're kind of filling in any grooves. That was actually the recommendation. Like I said, I can't remember the channel now. I was just kind of quickly doing stuff late at night. But let me see if there's any videos on people doing this kind of stuff. And basically what she said was to apply the first coat one direction and then apply the second coat the other direction, and that just kind of helps to make sure that you've sealed everything. No little grooves where the resin can get in. And you know, this is very important on things like photos and stuff, but I kind of figured, you know what, I think we can get away with 1 coat most likely, at least on this first test here. See what happens. And then but I did kind of like that idea of going 2 different directions. So with the 1 coat, 2 different directions. Let's see how that works. Okay, now going back to this other first one that we did. At this point, you need to let this thing harden up. So you're going to let it sit overnight, basically. Because you're going to have to apply pressure to it. You know, you could maybe go for getting on it as quickly as possible. Like once it's kind of hardened up a little bit, then kind of stick the card on there. But I think the problem is you really, unless you really press down that card and get it really affixed to that first layer, which if it's soft, you're not going to really be able to do that very well. I think you're better off letting it fully harden and really press that thing down on there and get it stuck, glued down to that first layer. Otherwise, what can happen is you get little air bubbles and stuff, which is kind of what I got, I guess. So maybe I need to do a little bit better job really pressing out and pushing it down, because with the glue, I wasn't waiting for the glue to harden up. You know, I'm literally using it as a glue, so it was wet. So I think what I maybe need to do is just come back and really force that glue kind of out. And I think you'll get a little bit better. Like I said, there's just minor little shiny spots, which means that there's areas where the resin didn't really bond very well to the glue, I guess. The glue, again, the resin wasn't wet though, so it's really a glue issue. And maybe what I need to do is actually make sure that glue is really wet, and then kind of force it down, add a little extra glue kind of thing is what I'm maybe thinking. You could also get more like air bubbles, but if you spread it out, basically, maybe even use a little tool like this to kind of force it down. I'm just kind of throwing out some ideas, like I said, just rambling while we kind of wait for this stuff to cure. But there's lots of different ways to do this. Now, you know, you may be able to get away with, I'm just trying to think, if you're going to do it this way, I don't know of any good way to do it where you don't use a sealer, because that's what I was thinking about doing at first, but then I realized that you got to press it down to that first layer. Maybe, actually, here's another way to do it. Here's another thought that I just had. If you could get away with not sealing the card, what you could do is maybe just pour some epoxy down on the top, and somebody probably just said that in the chat, I wasn't looking at it, but you could just use your epoxy and pour a little bit of that down in there first, and that will maybe, and then just kind of spread it out. That might not be a bad way to go rather than using the sealer stuff. Oh. Sorry about that, Doug. I don't know. It must be a YouTube thing. I don't know why it's putting people in timeout. And I'm not sure. The excitement, I know. Amy, I'm using liquid diamonds. Somebody, Wolfridge mentioned it. Any other questions? I think so. Like I said, I'm not an expert at doing this stuff, and that's why I was really hesitant when he asked if I could do this. I'm like, I ain't doing this. But then I was like, this will be kind of fun. I've wanted to do something like this anyway, so may as well do it on the stream and see what we can make out of it, all this stuff. And I have a few other cards, so if all of the stuff, the things that I've tried to think of, if none of them work, then I may have to go back to the drawing board and try some out. But I still have, I think, about 4 cards left, 3 or 4. One other issue that these cards are just, they have a slight bow. They're not like dead flat, like a pack of playing cards usually are. Little bit kind of bow to them. And that was actually another reason why I was kind of like, I really think you need to glue this down. Now, because there is a bow in it, that may have also made the glue kind of separate. So maybe I need to kind of press down while it's kind of gluing, while the glue is curing up on it. I don't know. There's, you know, a few different ideas, and we're not going to be able, the problem is, the only problem is with this stream is we're not actually going to get to try the gluing part. That's the one thing that I didn't have anything set up where I had the first layer poured. That would have been smart. I didn't think about that. But maybe, you know, either way, if I still have problems on this second one, you know, both of these things, if there's still some issues with weird stuff, then I'm definitely going to, you know, try to figure it out, and I'll share that with you guys on an upcoming stream for sure. Anything? While we're waiting, this thing's still, so basically the instructions for the amazing sealer stuff, basically once it's clear, then you can cast on top of it, but we're kind of waiting for that. There's still a few areas that aren't totally clear. So in the meantime, for anybody that didn't see on social media, we got the blanks from last week. Kind of a haphazard stream because nothing was the way that I wanted it to be. But I'm actually pretty happy with the results. So things turned out, I would say, better than I expected once I figured out that I overbaked the stuff. So let's get the overhead camera going. All right, so it actually looks like there might be some separation. I don't know if you guys remember this, or for anybody that wasn't at the stream. I'd have to cut into these, I guess. But we used deep pour, which is like a 2-hour working time resin. And I poured a couple colors together, and it looks like there might actually have been some separation in these. I don't know. It may just be the outside. I have a feeling that it all kind of is homogeneous in there, but I don't know. Maybe you can get it to stay separated, but that had nothing to do with what we were actually casting. So these are the pen twists. I am pretty stoked about these. So we bent up some resin, and they turned out pretty cool. I mean, I can totally see making more of these for sure. I forget, somebody mentioned you could use, thinner strips, and that definitely would work as well. But I was kind of going for chunky. I wanted some chunky twists. Now, one thing that I did notice is the micro starlight in deep pour. I mean, we're talking it has a 2-hour open time, if not more, especially for something very small like this. Even the micro starlight doesn't really stay suspended in deep pour. So for every other resin out there, I mean, most of them, the max is like a 45-minute working time or so, maybe an hour. It's definitely going to work with those, but with deep pour, it's not going to stay suspended. So just be aware of that. It's very difficult if something's, totally liquid for 2 hours or longer. And then we did this. It kind of looks like a tongue or something. I'm okay. I'm okay. It's slippery. Don't drop it on the Pokemon. These things are pretty cool. I think that they're gonna be interesting to see how they turn out. Definitely like the more bent. I think that's going to be better than like this one. The problem is I think we're going to turn away a lot of that stuff, possibly, depending on what you make out of it. A little bit more bent, I think, is a better way to go. Might be something in there. Try not to get dust in my Pokemon card. But pretty cool. Not too bad. And then we got this big guy. And I'm not seeing any like separation areas or any weird stuff like that. So that doesn't mean that the problem was this was way, this thing was like a week old casting. So it was very hard, very smooth. And so resins don't really like smooth stuff. So I was kind of thinking like, I don't know how well that's going to adhere, basically. And I left this guy, so we got one more. But anyway, you can bend resin to your will, and it's kind of cool. I've seen actually Alumilite on there, I think it was their Instagram page, posted, somebody made a rose, and I'm pretty sure that it's a bending resin method. It's thinner strips, but I think that's how they make those. So pretty cool. Okay, so this thing I'm looking at is just about clear everywhere. We'll be ready to go here in a second. Everything you need to build a mobile casting station. Well, I got to be honest. I already have that, and I already have a video. It's not specifically meant for that, but I mean, the main thing, I think at this point, what I'm using is a rollaway toolbox type thing. It's one of the Huskies. I don't have one here, but in my shop setup video, that's what I use, and I just put a bigger tabletop on it. And I honestly, if you wanted that, a mobile casting station, that's what I would buy. You got all kinds of storage. You could mount a pressure pot on the top, or whatever. Maybe even do something on the side of it. But yeah, you could do that. Sorry. See here. More like a scrape. Yeah. How's it going, Mark? All right, so I think this thing's good to go. So I'm going to switch to this view. And again, it's kind of the same thing. I mean, we're doing the same exact type of pour as we just did, but at least this time now we have a card in there. So again, you know, we poured 50 grams or so on the first round, the one that we just did. And then you want to pour an equal amount. That way your resin, you know, the card's going to be equally in the middle of all your resin. So that's all we're going to do. We're going to mix up a little bit more liquid diamonds, pour over top of that card. And then at that point, you just got to wait. This is a fairly small amount of resin. So, you know, you're going to want to leave this thing in the mold probably for a few days, I would say, just because it's going to be soft. Like even this guy, I mean, it's still, I can still dent it. This is Amazing Clear Cast, and it's been a few days. Let me actually switch to the overhead camera here. Show you. I was just kind of, and I didn't really do a whole lot there, but you can see all those little indentations. That's just from me poking it with my finger. So, you know, realistically, you're going to have to wait at least a few days to demold these things. I would probably go like 5 to 7 possibly before you even demold it. Just leave it sit there. Don't you know, mess with it kind of thing. So let's see if I can, I'm just making sure this isn't going to, kind of wobbly there. Okay. Let's see how we're doing here. So my bench is this way and then. So that's about the same. I just want to make sure that we're dealing with the same thing. So we need more business cards. So I'm going to get this thing leveled, hopefully a little faster than the last time. You never know. Just never know these days. Oh. Okay, that business card. That person cheaped out on their business card. I'm not even using that one. Okay, so we need to bring this side up and probably this side again. You guys see what I'm doing, sort of? Let me get behind the camera and get that a little bit more centered for you. Sorry about the bucket. I don't want to touch it. I guess it is kind of centered. There, that's as good as we're going to get. All right, so let's see here. Oh, we're too high. That's too much. Oh, actually, I was doing this backwards. There we go. That's perfect. Look at that. When you do it on the right side of the thing, you need to bring this side up. See how we did there? Ooh. Pretty good. I need to do a little bit more. What happens if we do that? Ooh, there we go. That's pretty good, I think. Not too shabby. Okay. So yeah, I started in a 2-car garage too. I had everything on wheels. And here's the thing, okay? I'm in a pretty big shop, and I just bought the mobility kit for my lathe, kicking myself that I didn't put it on in the first place. Just recently put wheels under my drum sander. I mean, it just kind of makes sense, you know? If you ever need to change your shop around, I mean, it sucks having to pick up some of these heavy tools and move them around, you know? Much easier if you can step down on a caster and just pop it and move, you know? Go for it. So it just makes more sense, I think, in most cases, no matter where you're at. I'm not sure if you were asking if I use 2 to 1 or I usually just use Alumilite Clear Slow. If you were asking, I'm not sure if you're asking me. That Total Boat little doohickey is pretty neat looking. I don't really use. I've never used any Total Boat products before. Pretty happy with the ones that I use, and you know, I could try. A lot of people ask me to try and compare and do all these things. Epoxies are epoxies typically. I mean, they're very similar, you know, for the most part. They all work. I like liquid diamonds because it's so thin. The thin viscosity of it and the timing and all that kind of stuff is great. And then Amazing Clearcast Plus works really well. I'm really that's like my go-to for the like dragon eggs and stuff. I've never have any issues with it so far. I haven't had any issues where there was like those shiny spots, which is kind of what I got on this this card. So I don't know, but on the other one, the first one. But for the most part, for everything that I make, I mean, Alumilite Clear Slow, I like the timing of it for color swirls and doing all that kind of stuff. You can pour gigantic amounts of it. And I've been using it for forever. So it's just kind of, that's my go-to personally. I don't know if you're asking me personally, but might have been asking Doug. But it is a pretty neat little dispenser thing. All right, so we need 32 grams of Part A. Ooh, I think I nailed it. Look at that. Nailed it, guys. First shot. I mean, it is dead on. Always fun when you nail it. All right, and then zero the scale out there. Again, sorry for the bucket being in the way. It's just I can't really move it at this point. And we need 16 grams of Part B. .8. Very close. Your turn to make dinner. Oh, man. Thanks for stopping by, Gene. .9. I'm just kind of making sure the scale is settled. That ought to be dead on right there, I think. There we go. 16. Couple drips that we can put back. Always be careful when you're pouring something back into your main container. You know, be you know, conscious if there's any like dirt or debris, or if you've dyed it, you can't pour it back in. You know, like just be aware, you know, when you're doing that, pouring something back into the main bucket. And I mean, this goes for anything. It could be, you know, like wood finishes or, you know, whatever. You're always better off kind of dumping something a little bit off of what you're using for your specific project, and then sealing up the larger pot anyway. And so but you got to really be careful and make sure that you're not contaminating the whole main thing if you pour, you know, whatever back into that main bucket. So just a little tip for you guys. So again, stir and slow. I'm actually going to look at the clock this time. 4:37 on the big one. One thing I do want to mention is this was the same exact thing that I did on this playing card. I'm a little bit kind of surprised that I got those weird shiny spots on the Pokemon card. If I get that again on these two, then let's see here. Yeah, on the next two that I do, then I may have to switch over to Amazing Clearcast for this stuff, because it doesn't seem to, I never seem to get those shiny spots. Although I guess the shiny spots were from the glue. Sometimes I get a little confused. There's all these steps going on, and I don't think it really has a lot to do with the resin. It's the glue, the sealer that I used. And I do think that you really want to get that glued and sealed down. So, you know, whatever way you need to do that, whether it be using like that sealer stuff, which it's meant to be like a mounting glue. So it's really supposed to be for that stuff. I think my problem was I didn't really put enough of the glue on. I think I need to put a little bit more on and make sure it's not like drying, not dried when I put it on there. A little bit quicker with it. In 2 minutes, scrape my stick off. Three minutes. Give it one more minute. I think it's good to go at this point, but oh, thought I saw the clock change. I'm gonna wait for 4:41 on my clock. There it is. So I'm just gonna let this kind of sit here for a second. Scrape this off and wipe off my stick. I'm gonna let it sit for a second and let some of those bigger air bubbles kind of float to the surface. There are a few in there. That way I'm not even pouring them in. We'll pop them before we even pour. You can probably see, if that helped at all. Probably see a few of those bubbles. They're pretty big, a few big ones, but there's not a lot. That's the beauty of this stuff. Not very many, but there are a few bigger ones in there right now. So, and you can let this stuff sit. I mean, another way to do it is you know, walk away for like 20 minutes, basically. And then come back, pop any that are still on the surface. And then at that point, I mean, you have almost no bubbles in the cup when you pour it. And then just kind of pour carefully. If any more bubbles come in, pop them right away and you'll be good to go, you know. All right, I'm going to grab my torch here. And that cleared a lot of them. Almost. There's some small ones in there still. I'm going to let that kind of sit. I don't think I was as careful the second time that I was stirring that. I'm much better at not worrying about stirring. Stir it fast. All right. All right, so that's pretty good. And again, you know, the bubbles are going to float to the surface in this mold. So we're ready to pour. I'm just going to pour in the center, let it kind of flow out. All that good. There's a few bubbles on the top. I'm just gonna, again, you want to be careful when it's in the plexiglass mold. You don't want to. All right, and then I need another bucket. I got a little bit of a smaller one that I can put over this one. Make sure your bucket doesn't have a bunch of dust in it too. That would be silly. I'm gonna put that over there. Now, one thing that we can do real quick before we kind of wrap things up, I'm gonna actually uncover this one, and I'm gonna look at it, and actually, I don't even see any air bubbles at all. But what I was gonna do is if there was any air bubbles on the surface, I would come back and pop them, but I mean, it's looking, I don't see any at all. So I'm just gonna cover it back up and let it sit. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna let these both sit overnight. Let's see here. So where are we at? So that one's gonna be done. So I'm gonna let that one sit like 5 to 7 days. I wanna make sure that it's nice and cured up before I demold it and do all that stuff. I may demold it within a couple days and then just kind of set it aside, let it just kind of sit. But either way, that thing just basically needs to harden up, and then all I need to do is kind of clean up the edges a little bit, and then I'm going to probably call that one good. If you had some kind of dishing and stuff, one thing you can do is they call it kind of doming, just adding a thin layer over the top and then just kind of filling it in so it's not kind of dished at the edges. It'll kind of fill in any dishing. I'm probably not going to do that. That's one of those things for me that you should just leave it alone. You know, like adding another step to the process. Like it could, especially if the thing is like perfect, but it's kind of dished. Like I wouldn't mess with it personally, because at that point I'm thinking I'm just going to ruin it somehow. So I'll probably let that one sit, but I will post, pics of what we get. Hopefully these things will turn out good. Hopefully one of them will be good enough to send to Jacob. Now on the other one that we just poured, we did first. So that's just the clear resin layer. I'm guessing that probably like overnight, well, I'm not coming into the shop tomorrow, so it's going to be 2 days. On Friday, I'll come back and then I'm going to apply, some glue to one of these cards and then stick it down. I'm going to really try and, squish it down to the surface, and I may even put something on top of it that's kind of heavy to almost like clamp it in place, possibly. I don't know. Maybe a piece of HDPE and just kind of clamp. I might actually clamp it possibly and just see if that helps. I can't think of any other thoughts that would fix that issue with the kind of the shininess. But the one nice thing is, even let's just say that that's the only issue that I get on both of these. It's like there's a few shiny spots on the bottom part, which is just, it says Pokemon. I'm probably going to say whatever, that's good enough. As long as the other side, which is the money side, this is the one that matters. As long as that thing looks good, I don't really care that much what the Pokemon side, if there's a few shiny things on there. So I'll have to kind of look and see, but I do have some more cards. So if I get issues with the shiny stuff on both of these things, what I may do is go back to the Amazing Clearcast and just try the whole process on the Pokemon cards with that, and just see if that changes anything for any reason. But anyway, that's what we got going on. I mean, it's pretty, it was pretty fun. Like I said, this was the first one that I did. And I actually have some really cool playing cards that I think I'm going to probably make some of these for myself. They're actually Star Wars playing cards. So, it's something kind of cool. You can, keep something like photographs, stickers, I'm just trying to think what else. You know, anything like that. You could print something out off the internet and then print it on your printer and then, you know, cast it like this. Obviously, all these different types of trading cards. There's like the Magic, the Gathering ones. I think there's Dungeons and Dragons ones, baseball cards. I don't know, football, all the sports have cards, I think, at this point. But, you know, it's really cool. You can kind of preserve it. But again, if it's something that it's like a collector's item and it may have value, I don't know, you know, watch what you're doing with that kind of stuff. I don't necessarily advocate doing that because that's going to ruin the value of it at that point. But, you know, for anything else that you just want to kind of preserve, hopefully you guys got some ideas at least out of this. Again, I am not an expert at this stuff. I'm kind of learning my way and testing the waters with different things. A lot of these things, like I know how to do the resin casting stuff. It's not, you know, that big of a deal. There's just nuances with these. All you have to do to figure that out is, you know, do a few experiments. That's how you learn all this stuff. And so even if you're not, you know, an expert at it, give it a few shots and then, you know, talk to some people that you see doing it and you should be good to go. I mean, there's almost nothing in the resin casting world that you can't get done if you know, experiment and practice a little bit. So hopefully, like I said, hopefully you guys had fun watching this stuff, and I think that's about it. Is there any questions before we get going? Looking for a video. Look for shop update. Are you talking about the one with that shows the toolbox? I don't think I have a video that shows like the new setup. There's the old one and it's over here basically. And then I redid the shop. I kind of rearranged things. So let's just do this. Check out my shop update because I kind of show that. I don't think that I did any kind of an update type thing. But I'm gonna bring the camera around the other side here real quick, and I'll just show you. It's just a toolbox, one of the like tool cabinets, or I don't know what they call it, toolbox from Husky. Like any of them will do. The you know, Harbor Freight has some. I think the biggest thing is you want to be looking for like the right height. That's one of the reasons why, because I was actually thinking about going with the Harbor Freight stuff, but theirs are like way higher, way taller. Let's just get you guys a little bit of a view here. I'm gonna actually get a kind of dark. Let me get a light. Okay. So here it is. It's got a big drawer on the top. That's where I keep all my micas. We had this like tabletop thing. It's just about a 1-inch thick edge banded piece of like plywood or something like that. But you know, the main thing is you want to make sure that your table height kind of coincides with like kind of about a 90-degree elbow for mixing, whatever's comfortable for you, that your shoulders aren't like up and you're also not hunched over. You want to have, you know, kind of an ergonomic height for your worktop. And then under here, we got kind of a bigger drawer, deeper. You can put molds and different stuff. I keep my PVC in there. Brushes and doohickeys go in there. I don't know, random stuff. Again, like random stuff that I might use for casting. And then over here, I don't know, it's all just kind of random stuff in this, but I got mold storage, much more mold storage, and like glitters and things are down there. So, you know, I mean, that type of and I don't know, this is I think the 42-inch or 50-inch or something like that. It's not even one of the biggest ones, but it works pretty well, and it has a wood top to it. So you could effectively not even have to put a tabletop on if you didn't want to mess with that. They come with like a workbench top. And, you know, it was funny because before I redid my shop, I kind of rearranged, was like doing organizing and stuff. last year. Before I did that and really looked into these toolbox things, I would always walk through Home Depot and I'm like, who would pay $1,000 for a toolbox? Are you kidding me? You know, and I was thinking about it like mechanics tools, or I don't know, these giant behemoth things. And at this point, what I did was I was researching like actual cabinets for your shop and all that stuff. Good Lord. Just normal cabinets, like even if you went down to Home Depot and bought kitchen cabinets, like the junky kitchen cabinet things that they have there, that you'd have to put a top on and you're trying to go cheap or something like that, it would be way more expensive and they're totally useless. They're like huge drawers, so you really can't use furniture like in-house cabinets for this type of thing. Anything to do in a workshop, I don't think, because their drawers are useless. You don't need thick, big drawers as the main drawers. You need thin ones. Most of our tools are thin. And when you look at like the garage storage cabinets, like those are meant for kind of like tools and things. They are so ridiculously expensive that if you went to try and like get the same amount of storage out of a garage storage system, you'd spend thousands of dollars. Like it would cost you a ton of money. So then it all kind of made sense when I'm looking at these toolboxes that are like pre-built and done. They have all the storage you need. They have wheels. They're solid. They're, you know, well built. I'm like, okay, now I'm kind of getting this. And so, you know, I paid a good amount. It wasn't $1,000, but I have a big toolbox over by my lathe, and it holds pretty much everything I need for my lathe for turning. I want to say it was like $700. Look for the sales if you can kind of wait. Like Home Depot and Lowe's have sales on stuff like this. They have like seasons. But I want to say that this one, I don't think it was much more than like $300 or $400. And I mean, I'm talking the garage storage solution things. Like you would get like one little cabinet thing for $300. It was ridiculous. So anyway, hopefully that's what you were talking about. I don't know. Doug's like, shut up. Here's the link. just stop talking. Anyway, so hopefully that kind of helped out, or even if that wasn't your question, hopefully it maybe helped someone else out. I guess really quick before we go, I'm going to just take a peek under this thing. I don't have a camera really set up very well. Try and get a camera kind of over my shoulder. How about that? I'm just going to take a peek at it, and if there's any bubbles, I'm going to pop them real quick. Once again, this is why I like liquid diamonds. There's really, it evacuates bubbles extremely well. I don't even see one. I'm not gonna waste my time. I'm done. I'm gonna leave it alone, and we're gonna call it good. So like I said, again, I'm just waiting on these things. I'm going to put glue a card down on the one. I'm going to wait, 5 days for the second one, and then pop it out, and hopefully we'll get a good, casting out of it. Just kind of clean up the edges a little bit here and there, and it should be good to go. Now the other one, I need to glue down the card, do the second pour, and then again wait 5 days. I do have extra cards left, and so if I am unsatisfied with shiny spots or something, I may try to do something else to kind of fix that problem basically on that first side. So we'll have to kind of see how this goes. I'll update you guys though, either on the next stream and let you kind of know how things go. I'm going to post pics once I actually have something done. But I'll probably kind of, mention what did I do with this stuff for like cleaning up the edges and stuff like that. I may kind of learn some lessons. The nice thing is the reason I decided to just go for like a, whatever playing card, was that way I can kind of test things and I don't have to worry if I mess that one up at all. It doesn't matter. So anyway, let's see here. Why not clear slow? Because that is not a good one. You want to use an epoxy. It's much easier to do kind of a slow setting resin. And again, because of the bubbles and stuff like that. Clear slow doesn't, epoxies tend to stick to things better, I think, but I really think that a slow setting resin is the way to go for this type of work. You definitely would have to pressurize it. One of the issues actually, so let's just talk about this. One of the biggest problems with this is if I put something in a pressure pot, and I've talked about leveling them, but I mean, let's be honest. Knowing that it's leveled after you've put it in there, you could level it to heck, But then this thing isn't on like, it's on a wheeled cart. It's not dead stable. It can kind of move around a little bit. And so you never know if it's going to stay totally flat. You have much more control over that on just like out, not worrying about anything. So I just don't think that, I don't think it's a good idea to go for a fast setting resin for this type of thing. I think you're much better off making sure that there are no bubbles and then just letting it sit there. I did run into an issue though. I ended up pressurizing this one with the Amazing Clear Cast because there was still bubbles like 35 minutes later, and I was like, ugh. So anyway, so there's the thing. Doug's in two things at once. Thanks for doing the moderating, man. I appreciate it. All right, so I think I am gonna head out here. It's about 5 o'clock. I got to do a little bit of what I'm doing on the dust collection right now. Is like I said, I kind of assembled parts, made sure that everything was kind of set up correctly, or would be working the way that I had it in my head. But right now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to climb up a ladder and hang some eye bolts, like eyelet things, up on our rafters in some of the places. It's actually a pretty simple system for hanging the pipe. All you do is just use steel cable, and they have like these adjustable doohickeys on them. So it's going to be pretty simple once, and I don't have those things yet, but what I realized was you could technically just like throw those things over the rafters that we have. It's an open ceiling up there, but the rafters are running this way, and so if you just hang a steel cable, any kind of cable over it, it's going to want to hang open like this way, right? The problem is I have, and that's great for pipes running this way, but I have pipes that run both ways. So I'm going to put some eye bolts, and I think that'll just help make the strands sit a little bit easier. But I don't enjoy climbing up 16-foot ladders. Our ceilings are pretty high here, so it would be kind of a fun time. But then next week, the dust collector comes on Wednesday, and I am super ready to get this thing all finished up. So I am going to be doing a video. What I'm going to do with that video, at the beginning of this stream, I kind of said I'm not doing a video explaining everything about dust collection, or how to set it up and all that. What I'm going to do is just kind of give you some highlights of what the changes were. And what I think is more important, what I think I can give you guys is, I want to, going through the process using what I bought, I want to kind of explain, was this, I did things for certain reasons. I bought the Nordfab quick clamp stuff because I got gigantic ceilings. And either way, hanging pipe, I don't really think it's going to be fun because I don't have any help. I'm doing this alone. I don't think it would have been that fun hanging on a ladder and having to screw things in and tape things and do all this stuff. That's why I decided to go and spend a lot more money on this Nordfab quick clamp system. And so, what I want to say is, okay, did this work the way that I expected? Was it worth the price? Were there any tips or tricks that I kind of, figured out along the way, rather than like this full tutorial, which I don't have enough time to do a tutorial, and I'm not even that good. I don't know what I'm doing necessarily anyway. So that's what the video is going to be. I am working on that video, and so it should be kind of fun seeing the changes. And then at the end of the video, I'm going to, hopefully fire everything up and see how does it work. It was very expensive. Am I satisfied with it? So it should be kind of a fun video, but like I said, not a tutorial how to install what I bought, but tips and tricks and some thoughts about it. So it should be pretty fun. I can't wait for that thing to get done so I can just move on with my life. Dust collection is not the most exciting subject in the world anyway, and it's like when you got to install it, you just kind of want to get it done. So anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed the stream tonight. Thanks for joining the fun. Thank you to the super chatters. I really appreciate that. Thank you for the support. Is there anything else going on? I don't think there's going to be a video this week on Sunday, so just to let you know, don't be looking for that because I didn't get one actually edited or done. Been messing around with dust collection and all kinds of stuff this week. Soon though, I do need to re-edit I actually kind of skipped one of the Patreon hangout things, so the February one I need to edit, so that'll probably be next week. Be looking for that. And other things. I got a few other things in the works, so it should be kind of fun. But either way, we're going to be back on next Wednesday at 3 p.m. doing something resin casting focused. If this is still lingering, we may revisit it, and I might kind of cover some things if I found out good tips or something like that. We may do that next week. I don't know. I don't have another plan at this point though. Either way, it'll be fun, I think. So anyway, I will see you guys all on the next live stream next Wednesday, 3 p.m. Pacific time. I hope you guys all have a wonderful evening. And again, thank you for joining the fun on the stream tonight. Have a good one, guys. I'll see you on Wednesday.